Good evening. Good evening. How you doing? My name is Coach Carville Bailey, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Life and Basketball. And here on this show is where we talk about how both the game of basketball as well as life are synergistic and how they have so much in common. And on this show, we take former athletes as well as current athletes, current coaches, former officials, current officials, as well as those individuals that have been very, very instrumental and influential in the game of basketball. And we let them tell their story of how a little orange ball has oftentimes helped change and sometimes save their lives. And so the show is being brought to you by Bless the Ball Skill Development Academy, where we help parents of unrecruited or under-recruited student athletes save money on college by helping them find the right scholarship fit for them. The show is also being brought to you by Understanding Life Through the Game of Basketball. The show was birthed from this particular book. This is my first book. This is my baby here. And this is just goes into this. These are basketball concepts that relate directly back to life. And so everybody I bring onto the show, they have all have taught the game this way as well as learned the game this way. And this is why they have so much success in their everyday lives as well as on the basketball court, because it's bigger than just bouncing a basketball. So I dropped the link to where you can get this book as well as some great bonuses included as well a little bit later on. But tonight I am super stoked, super proud to bring on somebody that I respect, somebody that I've kind of watched growing up. We kind of, grew up as teenagers together as college teammates. Someone who is a competitor from A to Z, competitor all around, multi-sport athlete, one of the fastest growing and winningest coaches in the state of Illinois thus far. This is an individual that has a heart and a concern for people and has shown it both as a basketball player as well as a coach. And he has proven to be successful each and every place that he's been. And so I am happy and proud to bring to the show tonight a buddy of mine, a coaching colleague of mine, and somebody, again, that I am proud to call teammate. Right now, we have Evergreen Park High School new head coach with us tonight, Coach Jimmy Sexton.
Carvel,
Jimmy, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you very much. And blessings to everybody out there in these crazy, uncertain times. And I hope everyone's staying safe and staying healthy with their families. I really appreciate you having me on. Watching some of the coaches and some of the people you've had on in the past, I'm privileged to be on tonight. Obviously, we grew up, like you said, we grew up together at UIC and had a lot of great times and worked a lot in the gym over there in the old the old PEB. So I appreciate it. And I'm super proud of you for all the success you've had with, not to mention the book, but your coaching career and everything you're doing for, more importantly, for kids, their parents, and athletes moving forward. So thanks for having me on tonight. Yeah, just a quick, played at Brother Rice High School, graduated in 1994, started at Creighton University, and then went on to UIC, was part of the first NCAA tournament team at UIC there in '98. Mark Miller, Anthony Coombs, Bryant Lowe, a lot of great players, probably missing some here, but and so I was so proud to play for a great coach in Jimmy Collins there. Yeah. After that, I've been involved in a bunch of different things. I was Coach Pat Richardson's assistant at Brother Rice for a couple years in the early 2000s. Started a youth program in Evergreen Park called Beyond the Arc Academy. We're kind of making some changes to that program, but it's been around about 11 years. And then most recently, I was a head coach at St. Lawrence High School for the last 3 years. We had a lot of fun and a lot of success there, winning over 60 games in 3 years and a couple regional championships. Was lucky to be involved with a great administration and a lot of great program players in the program at St. Lawrence.
Yeah, man, I love it, man. You I've been able to, break it down plain and clear, a plethora of experience. And before we get started, I just want to start with the foundation because I like for everybody to know and understand more about the individuals that we're bringing to the show, and then they can understand because most people maybe are now seeing Jim Sexton, the coach, just on the sideline, but not exactly sure exactly what makes up, Jim Sexton, the coach. And so, let's start with the foundation, being a proud resident, a proud product of Evergreen Park. How did growing up in that community help shape and change you, develop you into the individual that we see today? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Evergreen Park, above all, is a working class community. Residents are proud to be part of the community. I actually had my brother-in-law asked me the other day, was over at the house over the weekend, and he had kind of, we were telling some stories, and he mentioned, he goes, do a lot of people grow up and stay here when they become adults? And I said, absolutely. And it's a community where we're proud in the community. We work hard, play hard, and like a lot of people will stay in the community. And I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of, kind of born and raised here, except for my 1 year in Omaha, Nebraska, when I was a freshman at Creighton. I haven't, lived anywhere else. So I think definitely that's the biggest thing is you're raised to work hard, instill those work ethics. And I've tried to, pass that on to my players as well.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of
now, going back to, as you said, just, growing up and, working hard, playing hard. What were some of the best things that you could recall? What's some of the best things that you remember about just growing up in Evergreen Park as a young person?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was always, it's a little different now because everything seems to be so much more organized. Now, right. There was always a game. There would, whether it be baseball or football or, tackle football or baseball, or a 2-on-2 game or a 3-on-3 game, just in the neighborhood where you could get your friends together and just go and compete. And I think at an age, you learn how to compete because it's a situation where, you're not going to be involved in the next game if you lose. So I think that's one of the things I really learned, as far as an athletic standpoint, is that competitive nature from a young age.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Just competing. And, I'm pretty sure not having so much organized, but if it's going to the park, playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball, whatever it might be. But as you said, just it was a constant competitive nature. So like, how did that competitive nature, Jimmy, how did that competitive nature like drive you into being the athlete that you became once it got time for high school?
I think the big thing was never wanted to be second best. And you're competing against older guys. I would play up at the park, just specifically basketball against players that were, when I was in 5th, 6th grade, against players that were in high school, and you didn't want to back down. You didn't want to show any back down from those type of players, and you wanted to get out there and compete. And I think it carried over seamlessly to high school. I played on the varsity as a freshman, right from the start. Started on the sophomore team, played on the varsity team as a freshman. And if you have, as you know, as an athlete, if you have any back down, athletes are going to get away. So you have that competitive nature, and no matter what sport it is, you've got to be able to step up, even if you're playing against guys that are 2, 3, 4 years older than you, whether it be the park or a competitive high school or AAU atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, it keeps you going, or it really finds out if you're kind of built for it or not. I think at an early age, just having that competitive advantage, and just having that in your blood, it helps you not only with athletics, but also with academics, or in terms of being able to just compete against yourself, which is, you know, the ultimate competition, you know, and goal anyway. Now you go to high school, you know, and you attend Brother Rice. May have been, you know, a hard decision at that point. But how did you, again, being, you know, a resident of Evergreen Park, but how did you decide on going to the Catholic League now and, you know, being a part of that? And as you said, you know, starting varsity, you know, as a freshman, like what led you to Brother Rice?
Coach Pat Richardson, who retired a couple years ago, was the head basketball coach at Brother Rice, and has churned out a lot of Division I players when he was at Brother Rice, and had a great, you know, historic career there. Yeah. Was really the driving force behind my going there. Great school, great academics, but I wouldn't lie to you to say that there wasn't a basketball portion of that. And he really, you know, instilled the opportunity to come there, kind of build something. His first year as the varsity coach, they were 3-22, and getting on the ground floor of something great and kind of building the program. I was lucky to have great teammates there, and build that up, and obviously got a great education. But I would say definitely the kind of the tipping point to go to Brother Rice was Pat Richardson. I learned from him, not only as a player, but as a coach. And, you know, he's one of my biggest mentors in the coaching world. But like I said, just as a person, he had a, you know, huge influence on my life.
Yep. Now, most parents, you know, and I want to, you know, with this show, as I said, with athletes, parents, as well as coaches, but I really, really want to talk to the parents tonight, you know, because in the Catholic League, you know, they are able to, you know, recruit, go after the, you know, the best talent and be able to help, you know, subsidize and or pay for education. But I don't want to talk about that just yet. What I do want to talk about is, as a freshman, again, you're coming in playing on a varsity level. How was that transition going from 8th grade to now you're playing with, you know, because now you get to the varsity level, the game is much faster, is much stronger, you know, it's much quicker. So, like, how was that transition mentally for you? And then how was it physically?
Physically, probably the biggest thing. You know, I mean, you're even, you know, even going from high school to college. I remember my first game in college, or one of my first games in college, when I was at Creighton. You know, we played St. Louis, and St. Louis U at the time was a very good program, and you know, still is. But just a couple guys putting forearms on you and just body checking you when you're trying to make cuts. And high school was the same way. You know, I mean, you go, like my freshman year, Tom Kleinschmidt was a senior, Amino Timberlake was in the league. Again, there's guys I'm forgetting, but you know, some great players in the Catholic League at the time. Not to mention the guys that were my age, the Antoine Walkers and Jerry G's. And so, I mean, those guys were playing up as freshmen. So, you know, not to mention the South Suburb teams that were very good as well. But, you know, it's just a way that you're not used to when you're playing grade school hoops, where the size and the speed is just so much quicker, so much stronger. But like I said, I think a lot of that goes back to that competitiveness and that kind of belief in yourself. I mean, if you're, you know, first of all, it's obviously up to the coach to make that decision to move you up. But if you don't have that confidence in your ability to be able to compete against those players, then you're not going to be successful.
Absolutely, man. That's a great point. And I mean, I don't think, well, maybe people will understand, like, during that time, and not that it's not now, but the Catholic League, as you said, was rolling. Like, each and every night, it was, you know, couple Division I players probably per school, and you know, kind of wars night in and night out. Now, I wasn't on the court and in those games, but can you walk us through, for those people that don't know? You know, they may hear the South Suburbs, they may hear of Chicago Public League, but can you talk about Chicago Catholic League, like, as a player, you know, and you talked about all these great players, but when you talk about that competitiveness and just having that pride, night in and night out, you know, freshman year all the way to senior year, can you just talk about just that environment?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no better environment as far as, you know, especially back then.
Yeah.
You have games that are streamed, and there's maybe not as, as crazy a crowd environment, and maybe not as, unfortunately, not as great a, student environment. But just, I mean, that pride for your school, and like you said, I mean, not that it wasn't in the, south suburbs or in different leagues around the state, because definitely there is and was. But I think the Catholic League was different as far as, that kind of no blood, no foul mentality as well. So more physical nature of the game, and you're not only the players but the students and the administration really take pride in that. Not only having a great academic environment and a great social environment, but just that. I mean, that Friday night, whether it be basketball or football, or Saturday afternoon for football or Saturday night for basketball, was just so important, and obviously continues to be. But I feel like it might have even been stronger back, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. And I think part of that reason, like you said, if games are streamed now, but if it's Friday night, Saturday night, the bodies were going to be in the building, as opposed to, everybody watching, you're getting a lot of views. Now, if I believe, you are still the school's leading scorer. And I would call you a shooter, definitely hands down a shooter. But to be a leading scorer, that means that you had to do a whole lot. And again, playing with you, scouting report might have been shooter, but you understood the game of basketball. You understand the game of basketball. So you talk about us being in the PEB, but you knew where your spots were. You knew, when to get to those spots and how to be successful at those spots. Can you just talk about just your mentality being a leading scorer, and everybody, wants to score the ball, but can you just talk about how efficient you were? Not necessarily scoring 30 points and you got up 30 shots, but can you just talk about the efficiency from a player standpoint of knowing how to get to those spots, knowing when to get to those spots that are best for you so that you can get the maximum range out of basketball?
Yeah, and I think the two things I'll say there is, and when we get to the high school career, at 6'4" and not a great athlete as I wasn't, as still aren't, but I was able to play a little inside and out at the high school level where floor a lot. I was able to trail, to hit threes. Had a nice motion offense where, like I said, I played with some great teammates that were good passers, and I was able to not only hit shots from the perimeter, but also get to the basket a little bit because our motion offense opened up opportunities. And then when you move to the next level, even, I guess at Creighton or UIC, quote unquote, mid majors, now the game changes a lot because you're 6'4", you pretty much lose that opportunity to go inside that I had at the high school level. And that's one of those spots that's kind of taken away. So you're more of a perimeter game. You're perimeter only. I had to become a better ball handler as I went to the college level. At the high school level, like I said, it was a situation where I knew one of the biggest things Coach Richardson taught us was, if you want to get shots, be a great screener. We ran, like I said, we were passing game, motion offense. So if you're able to be a good screener, you're going to be able to get more shots for yourself and more for the team. So I
break that down for me for a minute, Jimmy, because I think that went over some people's head. If you want to be a good shooter, be a great screener. Like, can you explain that?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so if I'm coming out to set a back screen, there's going to be help when the guy that I'm screening for is going to the basket. That leaves me a perfect opportunity for me to pop out as my defender helps to protect the basket. I've got not always a wide open three, but a good chance if I set a better screen to be more wide open on the perimeter.
Okay, yeah, I love that. So to the athletes out there that want to get open or really want more shots, learn to be a better screener. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And I think, and again, I mean, there's, it makes you a more unselfish player. It makes the offense better. We've always worked with our players on trying to be better screeners. And like I said, if you look at it from a, sort of selfish standpoint, if you want to get more shots, be a better screener. But in the end, you're going to end up, convincing athletes to be better screeners, and it works better for the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at 6'4" now on the college level, you have to improve some things. Your ball handling, because at 6'4", unless you're Bryant Lowe, you really can't go down there and play the 4.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about Bryant. Yeah, he could do that. You're right.
Yeah, which just totally different. Obviously, he was a totally different dude. At that point. Now, so you leave Brother Rice and now you choose Creighton. Can you walk us through again to the parents out there? So now you're the leading scorer. You're the all-time leading scorer in Brother Rice history. And now you select a mid-major, what some people would say, right? A mid-major school. Walk us through that process of why Creighton, how was your recruiting, and what did you really have to learn fast in that recruiting process?
Yeah, Creighton, as far as different, offers, I was Creighton, UIC, Navy, Army, San Francisco, South Florida, kind of, again, a lot of schools in that mid-major realm. And it was a situation where Creighton seemed to be, or was, the best fit for me.
I love it. Yeah.
Basketball program, or kind of a building basketball program at the time, not quite like it is, today, or has been over the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
But they were also a very good baseball program. And as you mentioned in the intro, I played baseball as well, coming up. So I was able to have a preferred walk-on spot in baseball there. So it kind of worked well. It wasn't too far from home. I wasn't looking to go crazy far from home. Like I said, I've born and raised in Evergreen Park, and kind of a homebody. So I wasn't looking to get too far from home. And it just ended up being the best fit for me as far as both those sports. The academic program there is great. One of the best schools in the Midwest, if not the country. And when I had started there, I was looking to get into law. I didn't end up doing that, but they had a law program that was able to work business administration, 3 years of business administration undergrad into pre-law. Was kind of a selling point for me as well. So, like I said, it was kind of the total package for me. And, it just, my parents were good with it, and it worked out best for me at the time.
Okay. Yeah. Now, and I'm going to slow down right here because you said a lot. And again, for the coaches that's watching, can definitely learn and understand from it. The athletes can definitely learn and understand from it. But I want the parents to be able to walk away from this particular episode and interview with just more of an understanding of how to take control of their athletes, their own kids, meaning not put the control in somebody else's hands because they're more educated on what goes on, but also debunk some of the myths that people may not understand. And so you mentioned twice, Jim, the best fit. And it wasn't, you mentioned some great schools, Army, Navy, a few others that you could have went to. But rather than going to the school for the name on the front of the jersey or how it looks or how many TV views, how many TV games they got, you went to a school that was the right fit. And you mentioned that a couple times. And just in talking, not only the right fit in basketball, but it was the right fit for you to be able to play dual sports because you were a multi-sport athlete, but also it was the right fit in terms of education and what you believed at that point that you wanted to do with, the business administration, 3 years, and then going into pre-law. So it wasn't necessarily about the name of the school. It was about how that particular school fit Jim Sexton, the student athlete. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. I think as I'm sure you do, and I know you do, is we talk to our student athletes all the time about finding the right fit. It may it's got to be a combination of everything. Like I said, when I went to Brother Rice, Coach Richardson was a big reason behind that. It's got to be the coach, but unfortunately, coaches aren't always there the whole 4 years, especially at the college level. The academics, the social aspect of it is another thing, not to forget. I mean, you want to make sure that it's a good situation for you academically, socially, that your family's comfortable with it as well. I mean, so I think that's all of those things go to work, no matter what level it is you're playing at or you're hoping to play at. It's not always about the highest level, but it's about an opportunity where you can succeed and then move forward into, you probably know the numbers better than me as far as the opportunity for athletes to not only, I think the opportunity for athletes to play in college is like maybe 3% at any level. And then obviously the numbers going to the pros in any sport are a lot less than that. So there's got to be different, things that students are looking at. I get from a coach's perspective and from a competitive perspective that every player wants to go D1, especially when they enter the high school, arena and they start to compete in their competitors. But you've got to find the overall best fit.
Right. Yeah. And that, I mean, as you said, just goes into, so many things that we have to look at, because you're going to school for you, but you have to understand that it's bigger than you. And I think that that's what, when you're talking about with the social aspect, the parents, how your parents feel. And I want to show this real quick. Jimmy, let me know if you can see my screen here. So I think this is what you're talking about right here, like the odds of high school players competing in college. And so, to get to a Division I for men, whereas, over 500,000 student athletes in high school, but the percentage that make it to college on any level is 5.7. For women, it's 6.5 out of 400,000. But it equates to, as you said, 0.9%, 0.09% men and 1.2% going to a Division I level in women. So yeah, that's tough, and so you have to be able to find that one that's going to be concerned about Jim Sexton the person and not just Jim Sexton the athlete. So now that's what you thought. You thought that it was the perfect fit. You went, you played a year, and then at that particular time, something happened and it caused you to say, okay, let me find someplace else. And that's where our paths crossed at UIC. And so what happened there and how did that shift, change you as an athlete mentally, or did it even affect you in any way?
Yeah, really, it's pretty simple. Like I said, when you look at the dual sport, nature of it, that was really my big selling point. Like along with the academic portion of it, and I had the option to stay at Creighton, but not with playing baseball if I was going to play basketball. So I had a new coach come in, Dana Altman, who's now the coach at Oregon. Coach, like I said, I mean, really has been successful, and we got along well. But his point of view was I had had a coach before who had signed me and gave me the opportunity to play both. Altman's perspective was basketball and that's it. So that was the breaking point on it. And obviously it didn't hurt to be able to come home and play for a great administration and staff at UIC and like be able to do both of those and compete in both basketball and baseball.
Yeah. So no, and the reason that I asked that question is because one, I don't think that a lot of people even know that it's possible to be a dual sport athlete in college. We know about, if it's the Bo Jacksons or the Deion Sanders, but that's kind of back in the past. But
sure,
you were able to do that. But at that point, now you get a new coach, come in, and they want you 100% committed to them because if they're paying for it. So now let's go back for a second because you were a preferred walk-on. Can you talk about what is a preferred walk-on as opposed to just a regular walk-on?
Yeah, and I've even seen some guys, kind of in the media, Twitter and Facebook, the last couple of weeks that are signing or not signing, but committing to be preferred walk-ons and from high school to college. And I was in a situation that was lucky because I had a full scholarship in basketball.
Yeah.
Preferred walk-on is basically a situation where the coaching staff agrees to you're on the team as a walk. And you just don't have a scholarship for that sport. So it could obviously be just an individual situation where you go there, you go to the school, maybe you get some money off for academics or other different scholarships. But in my situation, it worked perfectly because the baseball team, and as you know, baseball, there's less scholarships in baseball versus how many players there are. So I was able to, have an opportunity to play baseball as a preferred walk-on with the guarantee of being on the team, but still had the full scholarship in basketball.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Now, being a dual sport athlete, how did that? Because I'm gonna go on a limb, and well, let me ask you instead of going on a limb. What's your best sport?
Ah, man. Probably have some regrets that I didn't stick more with baseball than I did with basketball. I mean, my college career wasn't probably the greatest. I had a lot of fun. And like I said, I played with some great players and some great coaches. But, at 6'4", baseball was always kind of my secondary sport.
Mm-hmm.
I probably committed more time to it. Again, no regrets, but that probably would have been a better option for me as being a pitcher than trying to be a shooting guard that jumped more than 6 inches.
Right. No, and the reason that I asked that question, I didn't want to go out on a limb, but I always thought that for as good of a basketball player that you were, that your passion was like baseball, but it was something about like just that love for basketball. But I would see your face, springtime, seasons changing a little bit, baseball time, it was just something about baseball that moved you, but I think because of the love of basketball. So I would probably say that I thought you were a better pitcher than a shooter, and I mean you're a hell of a shooter, but I felt like, okay, baseball, I questioned a couple times, like, okay, like at what point is he gonna just pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm gonna go here or there? But that was enough for you to leave Creighton and then come to UIC because baseball still was kind of tugging at your heart. You wanted to be a baseball player. Now coming to UIC and transferring from Division I to Division I, that led you to have to sit out. Am I correct with that on the transfer?
Correct.
Okay, so now can you talk about that? Because you went kind of, again from D1 to D1, and so now you sit out. So what did you learn about yourself, as well as what did you learn about the game of basketball during that time when you had to sit out for that year?
Yeah, I think being a two-sport athlete or being any athlete in college takes a lot of, time management and being organized.
Yeah.
I definitely think at that point in time, I learned a lot about that. And from a basketball perspective, playing against Mark Miller and playing against John L. Sloan and guys like that were even in just open gyms, the Sherrell Fords and Kenny Williams, guys that came back at UIC, just learned so much about the game to be able to play against such talented players. And like I said, myself not being a great athlete, having to guard those guys, having to play against those guys, really made me learn a lot about the game. Not that we didn't have some talented players at Creighton, but it was such a talent base at UIC at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even just guys that came back. I mean, you remember playing against them, the ability that those guys had. kind of a step above as far as being able to have to guard those guys every day and then try to get open against them. So, I mean, it's basketball. That was really, I mean, kind of a rude awakening for me as far as being able to play against those level of players. But yeah, as far as the academic and the, portion of it, it was really just being able to control your time where you can't actually compete and you're just practicing. I definitely would, suggest or recommend to players. I know I hear a lot about the transfer portal nowadays.
Yeah.
It happens. Obviously, we understand that. But if you're in a situation where you don't have to transfer or you really want to think about it, and really give it a lot of thought because, sitting out that year is not great. But, it's just a situation where make sure when you make that decision, like I said, it was the right fit for me at the time. Yeah. And I know probably what most players are thinking when they go into the transfer portal. But, I was blessed to have a great opportunity at UIC and I wouldn't change that for anything. But you want to make sure you're in the right situation. And maybe it does take a time to transfer, but players that are bouncing back and forth, transferring a bunch of times, it's tough.
Yeah, no, and and the reason why I asked that question is because I felt as though after that year, because you actually again went through the process of a coaching change.
Sure.
And so, but knowing you say during the Hallberg years, that year, and then when Coach Collins got there, it just seemed as though like right away, when summer came, because Coach got hired and like he had a press conference on my 21st birthday. Like I'll never forget that, which is in March. And so, but it seemed like right after that, May, June, July, you just had that confidence, like, okay, my time is up, right? I've set out, it's go time. And you just had it just seemed like you had a different sense of competitiveness, right? It goes back to that same word, to where it's like, okay, well, I've been battle tested against, pros, as you said, the Sherrell Fords, Jonell Sloan, Mark Millers, Brian Lowe, and, Kenny Williams, list goes on and on and on,
Sure.
And at that point, the Bulls were starting to get to that level that we've seen, at the time of this show in the past, month or so, because now it's 95, 96. And so, the Bulls are high item. So that summer, we were getting a lot of pros to come up to the PEB and would work out and would play as well. So it was heavy competition in that gym kind of day in and day out. And, as you said, you just being able to learn a little bit more about yourself, more about the game, learning from those individuals. So I think that, that's great. And I just wanted to ask that question because it wasn't, the title of this episode, and I frame each episode title based on the individual that I'm speaking with. And so this title is the journey to get back home. And so, you've kind of been through it as a player as well as a coach now, just that journey, but to make it back to your home roots. And so, it wasn't maybe as easy as people think, but you have went through that process. And I always talk about on this show, trust the process sounds like, that's a great t-shirt, but that process is long, it's grueling, and it can get frustrating at times. Because again, now you've went through 4 coaches in the span of 2 years, with coaches leaving in and leaving out, but you were able to stay planted and continue to stay focused, not only on your academics, but well as, the athletics, to be able to maintain playing both of those sports. So I wanted to just walk it through so that people don't think, okay, well, as soon as I sign, it's going to be great. There are some things that, again, if you didn't love basketball or had a passion for baseball, it would have been easy to quit a long time ago. And we see so many athletes that just give up. But I wanted you to tell that story because it speaks to not only your competitiveness, but your willingness to just see things through. So just having that follow through, Jimmy, like How have you used that and used your story to be able to help you as a basketball coach now when you do get the opportunity to go back to Brother Rice as an assistant coach?
I think that the thing with that is it's such a, when you have those life stories to be able to, bring forward to the kids, they have a little more trust in you. They have a little more faith in you and I think, I was an assistant coach at Brother Rice in the early, 2000s.
Yeah.
And I feel like even then, from then to now, kids probably were a little more respectful is probably not the word, but a little bit more scared of their coaches and a little bit more, I'm going to do anything coach says.
Yeah.
So I think that was, being able to build that trust, maybe even more forward towards today. You have that playing background. You have, like you said, whether it be multi-sport or individual sport that you're coaching, when you have kind of some ability as a player and kind of some numbers behind you, I think players maybe listen a little bit more to that. Not to say that that's the end all be all, but I think that's one of the things I bring forward to. But beyond the actual numbers, like I said, there's a story behind it. There's perseverance, there's working hard, there's not giving up, and there's like more than anything else, I think, is that time balance between books and basketball or baseball or whatever sport you're playing. Is at the end of the day, your goal is to get that piece of paper from college and move on to the working world, unless you're one of that really, really small percentage of players that make it to the next level. So I think that's easy to kind of be able to, like I said, maybe the numbers and maybe some of the playing stories or, legends behind some different things help to point across a little easier. But that gives you that foot in the door to be able to, work with players on, basketball. The ball's going to stop bouncing, eventually, and you've got to make it to the next level and something else besides playing basketball.
Yeah. I love that. Now, you talked about time balance. Can you go through a typical, because again, everybody wants to go Division One. Everybody wants to go D1. I'm a D1 athlete, regardless if I have D1 grades, if I have a D1 passion, if I have that D1 drive. And Division One is not for everybody. And, even with me transferring from a Division 3 to come to a Division One, and as a walk-on, once I learned about it, I'm like, okay, I guess I was kind of preferred walk-on because once coach got there, I was already there. So I was already kind of part of the team, but it's like, okay, well, we have our scholarship athletes already. But can you walk the audience through a typical day as a Division I athlete? Because I don't really think a lot of people understand, as I said, just having that D1 drive, having that D1 perseverance, that D1, as you say, time balance, because you really don't have a lot of time to yourself, unless you're not doing something else, So can you walk us through like a typical day, just like chunking up some of those times? How did your day look as a Division I basketball player?
Yeah, so you're talking 6:30 a.m. workouts, whether it be individual, small group workouts with coaches, when the time was appropriate, or weight trainers or conditioning, like I said, 6:30 in the morning, 8:30 a.m. class, maybe a couple breaks during the day as far as class, and then later in the day, study hall, maybe, based depending on where you're at in the season, obviously practices or games. And then if you're in the off season, again, probably another workout later in the day, whether it be skill development or open gym type situation, or maybe more weights. So yeah, you're, like you said, you're talking 6:30 in the morning until you go to bed of hard work, whether it be skill development, then school, obviously for the majority of the day, and then whatever it has to be, whether it's competition or it's more skill development or weight training, conditioning later in the afternoon. So yeah, like you said, and I know that's at any level, but especially at the Division I level when you're playing against some of the best teams in the country, that intensity and that that drive to be able to do those things, and obviously be able to compete with great players, to be able to get yourself a chance to get on the floor, get yourself a chance to get on the field, to compete is an all-day affair.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's, I'm glad that we're talking about it because, when I tell parents and kind of when I go through it and, if to add to that, if you're hurt, have any injury, now you got to go get treatment, got to be in the training room, as you talked about study hall, class, and all of those things were considered part of practice or part of the program responsibilities.
Film study.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And if you missed any of that, it was just like missing practice. And so it's not like, okay, well, I didn't play, so I don't want to go to film study. It's like that doesn't matter. Or, with me, even if it's okay, well, if practice start at 3, but I need you there at 1:30, so like hurry up and eat, but get there because we got to go over to scout, so that we can get the team prepared. But all of those things, as you said, from the crack of dawn until late at night, like your day was sort of dictated, and you had to find the time to kind of like cut time. Once you had good time management, management skills, now, you're able to do extra work in study hall, able to get that work done early during some of those breaks, or, going and, having that individual, having, getting treatment, going and it's all about one, communication. And I also think it's about building those relationships because we had a guy that I think we all considered crazy by the name of Markov, Coach Markov.
Yeah.
And, we all considered this guy crazy because in 15 minutes, he would put us through a circuit and the whole body would be sore, but if you needed an earlier workout, you had to be able to communicate with him so that he can get you in because, and I was telling this story a couple shows ago, I'm pretty sure that you would probably enjoy this one. But one thing that Coach Collins always did was he lined everybody up on the baseline. And he would say, okay, did anybody miss class today? All right, did anybody not go to treatment? Did anybody not go to weightlifting? And he already knew the answers to the question before.
Yeah, exactly.
He already knew the answer before he asked the question. But it just goes back to what you were saying. You have to have that good time balance, as well as be able to communicate. Because if you miss that time, then you would, at that time, coach would say, okay, well, either we're going to now have some type of running or punishment for everybody because of you, or it would be, okay, well, oh, you missed weights. Okay, go work out now and then come back to practice. And literally at that point, if you worked out with Coach Markov, you wasn't about to shoot no basketball for the next hour or so. So I think that it just talks about responsibility, and kind of, what you were saying just early on, that competitiveness built for, if it's okay, like Ani, don't you got to work out today? Or somebody could say, hey, Jim, did you go do what you were supposed to do? We were holding each other accountable because we understood that one affected each other. Even again, me as like the walk on, if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, how can I be the best person that we needed me to be to go through the scout? So, I think communication is key, as well as you said, that time balance.
And Carvel, if you don't mind, one of the things I think too for your athletes that are listening today, for parents of soon-to-be college athletes, one of the things I think is huge is taking advantage when you talk about that time management or that time balance, is using it, the summer courses to take, advantage of that to be able to move towards your degree is huge, because it's really tough to take a huge course load when you're in an athletic environment and you're on the road. I think the one thing athletes have, especially at the Division I level, is that you have great advisors. I mean, we had Denny Wills at the IC, who was the best.
Yeah.
He had great relationships with teachers and administrators in different colleges. And we were able to, as long as you worked with them and you were able to attend class and do your best, they would work with you. But I definitely think working to take some summer classes kind of cuts down that amount of hours you have to take during the year. So that's a big thing I would recommend for any athlete that's looking at, the next level, them and their parents to be able to do is if you can take a couple, credits, a couple classes credits in the summer, it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, that's a gem right there. And anybody that's watching, definitely you should be taking notes. Coach Sexton has been, just dropping gems so far all night, but I think that's the biggest one. And with that time balance that coach has been talking about, you just have to be able to know how to put yourself ahead of the game, because once the season starts, and like you say, we just took you through a typical day. So, if you got a paper that's due and if you're on the road and, at times, and, correct me if I'm wrong, you may have to go up to, being at UIC, you may go to, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, on a Tuesday, and then might have Green Bay on a Thursday. So you might stay up there. You might be gone or got to go to Youngstown State or whatever. So you might, be gone for 3 or 4 days. It's kind of easy, especially as a student athlete on a college level. But as you said, Jim, to be able to, strategically and intentionally take those heavier weighted classes in the summer, because one, the summer terms are shorter, so you don't have to be in class as long. But two, in the summer, you also have more people possibly that can help you because it's less individuals on campus during that time, and goes back to building those relationships. You're able to build more of a personal relationship with your, professors and instructors. Now they know you as, Jim Sexton, as opposed to the basketball player that comes to my class every so often, because they don't really care about that you have a game or, whatever. So just being able to build that relationship, with them, and then place those classes where you need them, I think that's huge. But now, let's jump back to Brother Rice. So how did it feel? Walk us through that emotion when coach called you, or, you had that, conversation, with Coach Rich, and, he wants you to come back and help the program out. Like, just walk us through that feeling of, okay, I'm going to be coaching one, and then I'm going to be coaching back at the place where I lace them up every night.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more proud. It was a huge privilege to be able to coach with him. Especially, I was lucky in a situation where so many coaches that are out there, had to build their way up from freshman level coach to JV to, and kind of work that progress, the process. I was lucky enough to be able to come in right underneath him and be a varsity assistant my first couple years with him. And I was, blessed to have that opportunity to learn from such a great, like I said, mentor and, basketball mind. So, that was, I couldn't have been more happy that I was able to do that and jump right in at the ground level of, coaching at the varsity level. And at that time, again, the Catholic League was very strong as well. We had some really good teams, and we were able to win sectional and regional championships, go to super sectionals, and coach a lot of great players when I was there. And like I said, learn from, in my opinion, one of the best coaches that the state's had in the last 25 to 30 years. So, I couldn't have been more proud.
Yeah. What would you say is the importance of having a mentor in any profession? But, especially so, the coaches, especially the coaches that's out here that may, feel like, hey, I was a great player. So I know it all, or the coaches that have had a, few good years, had a good run. And, so now I don't, have to listen. Coach Donnie Kursky, is on, and he talked about, how meeting you at, the Final Four. So obviously you're going to the coaches convention, steadily learning. But tell us, like, what do you think the importance of having a mentor is, and then how big is professional development to you in terms of, just getting better at your craft?
Yeah, I think the professional development is huge. I think clinics and obviously things like you do is with Les the Ball is awesome. And I think that's one of the things that really make that even a better opportunity is, and I guess fortunately and unfortunately, we've learned a lot of lessons through these, COVID times, is that how much you can learn by going to your show or going to your YouTube stuff. Different things that you can learn, as far as it may not always have to be in person. There's definitely different avenues to, develop as a professional. That, there's clinics out there, face to face that are awesome. And you obviously are able to network with different coaches, not only learn to help develop yourself, but I think this is kind of part of the reason you open up the show, or one of the things you opened the show up with, was you talk about Donnie. I mean, myself and Donnie's relationship goes back even before you and me. I met Donnie at the 1992 Final Four in Minneapolis, and I was a player at the time. I was a sophomore in high school, and I've known since. He's helped me as much as anybody in my career, as far as connections he's helped me with. And we're still friends today. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Through the years, obviously he was at UIC. He's a coach at CVS. We beat them in the regional championship. I won't rub that in on him a couple of years ago, but so like you said, I mean, there's such it's such a small world now, but the connection through basketball carry you on through life. I mean, just like some of your best friends, if not a lot of your best friends, are, cultivated through being in the basketball environment and in the basketball culture, and you learn from each other day to day, even if you don't even realize you're learning. It's just something that it's subconsciously, you're having a conversation of something that may not be a clinic or may not be an online, tutoring session on basketball. And you remember something somebody said, in a situation that you coached with, or you played against, or you were in an open gym with. So I think that's just that constantly observing and learning new things from other players and other coaches goes a long way.
Yeah. I love that, man. And because I think that is big for us as coaches to continue to learn and grow. But also know that it also helps to be able to have somebody close to us, that we can call on, as you said, if it's, Coach Rich or, Donnie, whoever, many other people, I'm pretty sure that, you had it, even at some point, probably like, Coach Coombs or Coach Nagy, even like Coach Collins, that, you can kind of lean on and ask those questions to. So now, you all have a great run at Brother Rice. And then St. Lawrence happened. And I'm gonna go on a limb here now, and haven't been in the Catholic League, but just knowing those rivalries, those competitions, it's almost like when Shaq played for the Celtics, it's like, wait, what's going on? So like, how did St. Lawrence come about, and what really motivated you to even start there, even as an assistant coach, and then being elevated to the head coach?
Yeah, so Jim Maley was the head coach, and a great friend and great coach. He's out of Conant now in the northwest of the burbs. He had just taken the job. I think it was his first or second year at St. Lawrence. And I had a situation where at Brother Rice, I won't lie. I mean, a good friend of mine, Dave Wills, Denny's son, had applied for the job a couple years earlier at Brother Rice. He didn't get the job. I backed him really strong. He was a big part of Beyond the Arc, and we were good friends and close partners. And then the next time the job opened up at Brother Rice a couple years after, I applied for the job and didn't get it. And again, I feel like I poured my heart and soul into Brother Rice basketball over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
Some people may think I was a little petty, but it was just time for me to move on. And I was able to meet up with Jim and kind of discuss our basketball philosophies and things that he thought, were going to help make St. Lawrence into a better program. They had been on some down times as far as, wins and losses. And I went with Jim, and I was able to coach with him and his dad and kind of help build the program there, bring in some good players. When Jim moved on to Conan, he really backed me strongly to be able to, to bring me in as the head coach. And luckily, Tim Chandler, the AD there, agreed, and I was able to, have a good, successful run there in 3 years at St. Lawrence.
Yeah, and your 3 years, you were 62-34, so it almost basically, 2-1. For every 2 victories, it was one non-victory. And you all played, what I guess the scouting report says, more of a, fast pace and long range, deep ball game. And I don't want you to give up none of your trade secrets tonight, but I do want people to really understand just your basketball mind. In order to be a fast breaking team, there are a couple things that you must do before even being able to be a successful fast break team. Can you break that down to us, Coach? Like what's one thing that every team needs to be able to do if they want to be a fast break team?
I think the 2 biggest things, and I'm not even going to say talent as one of them, because I don't believe you need a ton of talent to do it, but I think you need conditioning and you need mentality. You have to have that mentality that you're going to run the floor as hard as you possibly can. You're going to constantly be chaotic on the defensive end, and that obviously requires conditioning. And then the other thing is offensively, the mentality to we're going to try to get a shot up in 6 seconds or less, even with no shot clock in the high school game. So I think those are the 2 biggest things I would say is conditioning and mentality. You have to stick to it. And I've had coaches ask me before, we had good talent at St. Lawrence, or very good talent at St. Lawrence. What would you do if you didn't have as much talent? And my question to that would be, I would do the same thing, because I think any player can run as fast as they possibly can to the corner. And as long as you have a ball handler or 2. Now, if you don't have a ball handler, and if you don't have a ball handler, you're probably going to be in trouble anyways. Right. But if you have 1 or 2 ball handlers that can create some space, those players can run to the corner where there's kickouts. You can play pick and roll offense. There's different things you can do as far as, like I said, I still have a lot of those, motion tendencies that I talked about that Coach Richardson had at Brother Rice, with some kind of mixed in, pro style things as far as like high ball, ball screen, pick and roll, secondary actions that you can quick hit. But yeah, we really break it down is try to score in 6 seconds or less. If not, then you're going into a secondary action between 6 and 11 seconds. And then if you can't score in 11 seconds, then you're better off trying to run some motion 5 out. We run a lot of 5 out. We'll lean on some sets and some, like I said, some sets after that 11 seconds to be able to kind of grind a defense down with some screening, cutting, and ball movement. I think no matter what level you're at, or, whether it be high school, grade school, high school, to the pros, quick ball reversals, but try to score as soon as possible. And if you don't have that mentality, you don't have that conditioning, you can't do it.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And, because even with the conditioning and the mentality, most teams that, most people like to play an up-tempo game, but most teams really don't know how to play an up-tempo game structurally, right?
Sure.
So, and you just explained structurally, but after 10, 11 seconds, if the other team is not mentally conditioned as well as physically conditioned, you know, you're gonna get a layup anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna break down after one or two passes. Now you're talking about going from a primary break to a secondary break into sets. Well, the conditioning to be able to do that on a consistent level is, you know, definitely like needed, and you have to have that. But I think so, you know, more than just having the win to do it, you have to, as you said, you know, now the game is played from the shoulders up. You know, now we have to be able to better outthink the other team with just playing naturally, doing what we do. And I think that that's a good thing that you have done as a coach, that you develop basketball players, not just teaching athletes how to play a particular position. So can you break that down a little bit for me?
Yeah, I think whether you want to call it more of a new wave situation,
Yeah,
I really have bought into that over the last probably 4 to 5 years, where quote unquote positionless basketball.
yeah,
Uh, you never know. You work from players from the youth levels all the way to college.
yeah,
Players that have played in the pros. So you might have a kid that is taught to be a center because he's 5'10" when he's in sixth grade, and then he's 5'10" when he's a 12th grader, a
yeah,
senior.
yeah,
So, I really think that there is a lot of value to be able to teach players how to play as opposed to, just be robots. And I think that helps develop them towards where they want to go as well. You can obviously work that into a team frame, into a situation where you're still having a teamwork structure and developing towards winning games at the high school level.
yeah.
But you want to give these guys every opportunity to be able, because again, I've always said, we kind of pride ourselves on positionless basketball, but you give me a 6'10" guy that can put his back to the basket and go dunk on somebody all the time, then we'll probably work more around him. But at the high school level, even the most talented high school teams, there's going to be a lot up and down. There's going to be some broken plays. And there's going to be situations where players have to learn to play on their own. And you don't build that into your practices, then I think you're cutting kids short and not helping them develop their skills, not only to play at the high school level or, even before the grade school level, but eventually, if they aspire to play in the college level.
Now, I don't want to let that pass too fast. Learn to play on your own. Explain that to us, because I don't want for parents to, sit and watch like, yeah, that's what I've been saying. Or the athletes like, yeah, that's what I've been saying. Let my kid just play, or let me just play. You're not talking about like just out there, just willy dilly, like ragtag and rec ball, just open gym. When you say like learn to play on your own, elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, I guess when I say learn to play on your own, I mean you're talking more concepts and skills.
Yeah.
And part of the skills that we sort of talked about earlier are that basketball IQ and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and obviously working with the coach to be able to develop that. Because you said maybe some parents, maybe some players have different ideas of their skill set versus what the coaches may think. But being able to develop those skills to what your coaches and what your framework of your team is, but not being so constrained that everything is robotic. So we build that into our practices where you're playing small-sided games, you're doing different things to develop skills that make them be able to make decisions a little bit on the fly during the game. And that, again, as to your point, is not from a selfish perspective, but how do I best work with my teammates out on the floor so that we can be successful and that I can develop myself as a player, not, like you said, ragtag or kind of, men's league, but being able to work those concepts to get better as a player and, build that in the framework of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted you to break it down, because I didn't want for, a lot of parents like, oh, I feel relieved. He said, just, let them play. No, it's
Yeah.
playing within the whole structure of the game, knowing what to do, when to do, why to do it. Now,
And there is a fine line to that,
Yeah,
and I think that's the best coaches are able to do that. You have your kind of coaches that are going to say you're going to do it my way or the highway. I don't think that works anymore.
right.
And you said there are some coaches that will say just let it run and just let them play. I try to balance the both of them. I'm definitely not new school by any ways. I'm 44 years old, so it's but I also try to keep up on what's going on in the world of basketball.
Yeah.
I do. There are some concepts that go from the pros to the youth game, and from the youth game up to the pros. Not all, but I think there are some common concepts that we can look at as far as player development that sometimes, if you have a closed mind, you may say, that's not for me. That's not the way I've always done it. So I try to keep an open mind to be able to, like you said earlier, you develop as a student, you develop as an athlete, as a competitor, as a kid, as a college kid, as a coach. I think you got to do the same thing. Keep an open mind and constantly learn to do different things. Does my style or your style or whatever coach style always work for everybody? It's you're never going to get a buy-in 100% from the fans, from the parents, from the players. But you have to stay true to your style, I think. And I think that goes a long way towards, if you don't believe in your style, then I don't think anyone else is going to believe in it.
That's a huge point. If you don't believe in your style, nobody else will. From the athletes, your coaching staff, ain't nobody gonna believe in it. Now, how important do you think, Coach, being a good defensive rebounding team goes into being a great running team?
It's huge. That's in one of the things. Part of having a fast-paced offense. A lot of times you're using that because like I said, you don't have a 6'10" guy or you don't have a size. So you might have a bunch of shooters, or you might have some good ball handlers. They're able to create space in an open system to be able to kick the shooters. And I always say 3 is more than 2. I mean, it's a concept, but to be able to do that, you have to have kids that are tough enough, even if they're undersized, to be able to put their body on somebody and keep bigger guys off the boards. So defensive rebounding is huge. And not only be able to secure that defensive rebound, but get it to the right guys in space to be able to get down the floor to create that quick offense.
Yeah, to be able to turn it up, and again, I don't think we gave any of trade secrets. Just again, basketball, basic basketball concepts that are needed to just develop not only athletes but programs into being better. And that was one of the reasons why you were so successful, even so fast at St. Lawrence, because you understood that. And as you said, even from a defensive standpoint, they had the mentality that we're going to be scrappy, we're going to get stops. And then the final part of that getting stops is what we just talked about, getting that defensive rebound. Now, when the ball goes to the other end, are you in great physical and mental condition to play against us? And I think that the advantage that running teams have, again, everybody wants to play that way, but everybody can't. So, if you got, on a Tuesday night, if you play a game and then you got St. Lawrence on a Friday, 3 days is probably not enough time, or 2 days is probably not enough time to get my team ready for the way that you guys play, because that's a whole system within itself. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that's big. I mean, they're that pace is, I really think, wears teams down. It's kind of like running the ball in football, where you have to run the ball to be able to pass the ball. And even if you kind of run the ball a couple times and you only get 2 or 3 yards, to bust that, 40 or 50 or 60-yard run. And I think that's kind of our system is wear teams down to a point where you're going to be able to, maybe if you don't shoot the ball early in the game, obviously it'd be ideal to shoot the ball early while in the game. But if we can wear teams down again with kind of a pressing, aggressive style defense and running the ball, down the floor offensively to get quick shots. Another thing with quick shots is you'd mentioned defensive rebounding. One of the things I think is huge with that type of system is you're going to take a lot of quick shots. That also means a lot of long rebounds. The offensive players are usually, they can read the ball a lot better off the rim to know where it's going. But it also leads to a lot more offensive rebounds, and that leads to either layups or kick back out for, other opportunities from three. It's something that, more and more teams play that style. I wouldn't, say that we're the only team that plays like that. But I think you're right. When you go from a Tuesday or Friday or a Friday to a Saturday, sometimes it's harder to prepare than a team that maybe, has a bunch of set plays that you can kind of scout and kind of talk through and walk through, a lot of times. And, the other thing is, and when we've run into this situation ourselves where sometimes we play against teams that play the same type of style, but maybe are more athletic or have a little more size, and they're hard to prepare for. So I think part of it is, like you said, the preparedness. If you're not prepared and you're not used to, if 75% of the teams you play are slow it down, walk it to the half court, run flex, run a bunch of sets, and then you have to get used to that quicker pace. I think it helps you, like I said, kind of maybe, jump up on some teams, especially if there's less preparation.
Absolutely. And so now, after having 3 great years, you figure out that, well, I don't even want to say figure out, but you are a family person, you are a career person, and there are other things that goes on in Coach Jim Sexton's life other than just basketball. So talking about finding that right fit, having that time balance, you resign from St. Lawrence. Kind of talk about what family means to you, as well as, what your career is, because unlike most coaches, that have probably been on this show that, in high school, college, but they're around their athletes all day. They're in, the building. It definitely makes it much easier. But again, you are one that has a different career, and you're not a teacher in the building or a staff in the building, but you're also a family man. So can you talk about like what those two things mean to you outside of basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, me. I mean, family means everything. My son is going to be a freshman in high school. My daughter is 7. Going to be going into 2nd grade. My wife, my parents, extended family, my sisters. We all live in the same neighborhood. We're live blocks from each other. So I mean, I think that's the most important thing, especially if we haven't known that already. We've learned that in these times of the coronavirus. But it was just a situation where being closer to home, not that St. Lawrence was far, but being able to go to Evergreen Park and kind of continue on what they had done and build the program even more, along with my son being an incoming freshman and some of the players that he grew up playing with, and those guys kind of moving forward was a great selling point. The facilities at Evergreen Park are going to be second to none. They just are in the process of rehabbing a new field house that's blocks from the school in Evergreen Park. And like we've talked about, born and raised here, just an opportunity to continue to do great things at the school, not only academically, but basketball wise. I think we've kind of only scratched the surface, and I think that those things will continue to move on in the right direction. And I think, family wise, it's so nice to be able to, like my wife works and, she's involved in the grade school district as far as doing some fundraising things and things along those lines. So, my daughter and my son both are in the public schools in Evergreen Park. So I think it's just a kind of a, once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to go to the high school and kind of build things, like I said, continue to build things upon where they're at. And, hopefully have a great experience with the players and the staff and the administration there.
Yeah, yeah, and Coach told me some time ago, probably maybe about 7 years now. He said all jobs aren't good jobs, but there are some jobs that are kind of like golden jobs, almost like dream jobs. And, it seems as though, again, finding your way back home, on a college level to be able, to come back home to, UIC where, again, you're close to family, you're able to spend that time with family as well as friends and teammates. And, even from a coaching, perspective, yeah, you went back, quote unquote, home where you went to high school. But to be able to come back now to a community where you grew up, to a community, and as you said at the start of this interview, they just put that competitive foundation in you, to be able to come back now home and be able to help build a program, where you grew up here, really, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you understand the tradition, you understand the, level of expectation, and to be able to, take that head on, I think is amazing. But what I think is even better is that, as you said, you've kind of taken time to have worked with this younger generation, with your son and his friends, but to be able to coach your son now, like, what is that feeling like, and what are you expecting with both of you guys?
Yeah, he's always been around, even going back to when I was coaching later in my career, Brother Rice, and with starting to be on the Arc Academy, he's been there, from the start, with that program pretty much since he was a little guy, and just being able to work with him day to day. Unfortunately, we haven't really had a chance to get much involved,
Right.
level just yet. His graduation is tomorrow, so
Okay.
we'll be able to kind of move into it depending on what the IHSA approves and
Right.
things we have for this summer. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great experience, and I think he's doing the things and been doing the things to improve himself and get better for the high school level and get prepared for it. Similar to the things we talked about as far as the academic and the athletic approach to it. So I think he's going to be more than prepared from the great school coaches he had. And, like I said, the public school system in Evergreen Park academically. So I'm really looking forward to it. I know he is. It's going to be fun. And like I said, it's just being able to do it in our hometown and work with a lot of the great players we have coming into the program, along with kids that are, that are returning, that I'm really looking forward to working with once, like I said, some of these things kind of open up, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay. Now you have mentioned a couple times Beyond the Arc Academy. Can you explain that? I know your youth program, and it's been in existence for over 10 years now. But can you explain a little bit more about what exactly is Beyond the Arc?
Sure. So myself and Dave Wills, I know Denny, his
Yeah.
dad. Dave played for me when I was an assistant coach at Brother Rice.
Okay.
After he graduated from high school and went to college, we became good friends. We started Beyond the Arc, I think it was 2010, and we do everything from youth development programs where you have 6 to 9 year olds playing on 8-foot hoops with small basketballs, where we have some of our coaches working with them on learning the game and learning the love for the game. and being able to kind of get that first taste of the competition before they get to the grade school levels.
Yeah.
We had travel teams from 4th grade to high school for a long time. We did individual instruction. All those different things were built into the program. Like I said, we've kind of scaled back within the last year, and that is going to turn into some type of feeder program kind of in the transition period, probably a feeder program for Evergreen Park as far as travel teams and different things that we do to help develop kids in the neighborhood to, Beyond the Arc was a little bit more widespread, where it was Evergreen Park, Oak Lawn, the Beverly area, Lamont, Orland Park, a little bit more the Western Springs area, a little bit more widespread, whereas now we're kind of looking to move it towards a focus of Evergreen Park only. But yeah, I mean, I think you learn so much, as learn so much from working with youth players. And I've built relationships, whether it be at Brother Rice or St. Lawrence, and then now transferring over to Evergreen Park with just people in the community of Evergreen Park, and not to mention, like I said, neighboring communities. And you just know so many parents and players that I coached against, neighboring high schools that I had coached and trained since they were little, to see them be successful. And it's so fun to be able to kind of build and work with those kids since they're little.
Yeah. What is that feeling like, when you see somebody that you've literally been part of their life throughout their basketball maturation, and now you see them on a high school level? You may play against them, or you may be going out and scouting a team and they're playing against that team. Like, what's that feeling like, just going in knowing that you've had your hand in the development of that particular athlete?
Yeah, it makes you super proud. I mean, I think one of the things is, you kind of have a little inside information as far as scouting playing against them. So that's kind of a positive thing to a certain degree. Just to see them, like I said, I mean, we've had so many kids that have went through the program that are now graduating from high school, or have already graduated from high school, that are going on to the college level, that are going to be, we've had kids that are, lawyers and dentists and doctors, importantly, and then just in the day-to-day competition, where you see, a kid might hurt your team that you're coaching, but you still have a sense of pride that you were able to help that guy or that girl kind of develop their career, and not only on the floor but off the floor. I think that's always been a pride point for myself, and like I said, Dave, and all the coaches we've had. We've probably had, I can't even off the top of my head remember, 15 to 20 coaches that were, either volunteer coaches or high school coaches that worked with us throughout the years. And, it was, fun time working with the kids. And obviously you see a lot of those kids at the high school level, and then helping moving on to, life after basketball.
Absolutely. Now, for the coaches that's out there, can you tell us what your secret is to, like, being able to coach your son? Because that's a fine line. And I, even when I was working at Orr, and with Coach Adams, and when he was coaching his son, and I used to have conversations with them. I know, like Coach Maddox at Bloom, coaches his son. It's a lot of coaches that are out here and have been out here that have coached their son, but everybody can't do it, because it's a fine line between coach and dad. Like, how do you maintain it? And, having coached your son, if it's in, Beyond the Arc Academy, and just like those games, or do you just not coach your son?
Well, it's good. That's what I was gonna say. I mean, I might be able to have to come on an episode next summer and let you know how it goes after this year, because I really, beyond some spots here and there, coaching them with Beyond the Arc, haven't coached them a lot at the at the grade school level.
Okay.
And unfortunately, due to my high school coaching responsibilities, wasn't even able to see him play a ton at the grade school level.
Okay.
Yeah, we might have to discuss that in the future. But I think the thing that, Coach Maddox could tell you, or Coach Adams, I think that, there's that worry that there's going to be a daddy ball, or you're only looking out for your son. And I've done this long enough, and I've worked with enough players that, especially being in Evergreen Park, this is for the community, and we want the community to be involved in this program, and to have a full house every Tuesday or Friday night as much as we possibly can. To be a great representative of the school district and the community at large, and have a lot of great times. So if he's not the player that he can be or will be, he is another player when it comes to that. And I think that's where you kind of draw a fine line, like you said, the hope is that he will be, and he'll be a strong part of it. But you have to separate being dad and being a coach. And like I said, doing this for a long time, I definitely have confidence that I'll be able to do that.
Yeah. And, I always say that, if we're good at our craft, like teaching somebody how to play basketball is easy if they're willing to do the work, and as you said, you don't have to be the most competitive or the most athletic person to be able to play defense or run as fast as you can in a spot. And now we come in and do what we say that we can do and teach the game. Well, we can teach them how to play. So I think that that's a great point, to where, he still has to. And, I think part of what I read at one point in time, an interview you were doing, is, you take pride on just being able to outwork the competition. Can you break that down? Because most people think, outwork the competition is going to be able to, outscore the competition. Like, I think it goes well beyond just scoring. So, like, when you talk about outworking the competition, what does that mean to Coach Sexton?
Yeah, I think, especially as a coach, and it goes back to being a player as well, is being prepared. I mean, I think when you're putting your practice plans together, or you're even putting your individual workouts together for players, you have to have a set goal that you're going to try to make so many shots per workout, or you're going to be able to spend so many minutes working on ball handling, or whether it be strength, conditioning, plyometrics, different things that help develop that overall player. So, I mean, I think when you do that, that's part of outworking. And then, like we've kind of talked about throughout the interview, is that mental portion of it, is not letting little things get you down and being able to bounce back, whether it be within a season or within a career, but especially even in a situation within a game, is having that mental toughness to, even things may not be going right, to be able to make those free throws late in the game. And I think comes back to preparation and mental toughness.
Yeah. I love that. Those are a couple of great points there, Coach. Now, Evergreen Park, coming back home again, and we've been talking about that, but you've been a product of the Catholic League, and you kind of talked about, the competition night in and night out during that time, as a player, as well as, as a coach in the same Catholic League. But now at Evergreen Park, you want to, or you're competing against some of those same individuals like yourself from Evergreen Park that wound up leaving and going and playing in the Catholic League. So I know that one of your, goals this year is to be able to get, some of the homegrown kids to be able to stay home. Can you talk about what your mission is for Evergreen Park? And I heard you say, you're not coming back to Evergreen Park to not do well. You're coming back to do well, to take that program to another level. But for the parents that are listening, especially in that community, they may know of the Sextons. They may know somewhat of your story as an athlete, know of you as a coach. But why Evergreen Park as opposed to now taking my son to the Catholic League that's kind of been on him, for a year or two now?
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about this. Is the academics are really big. The school has a great academic tradition, great teachers, administration, mentoring programs where kids can really do things to help them develop towards college. And again, that's not to say that the Catholic schools don't do a great job too, but I really think to have a school that's that highly rated within the state of Illinois and the country, where they can go to develop themselves academically, and I think we both agree that that's the number one concern. So that's huge. I mentioned earlier the facilities as far as the field house that we're in the process of rehabbing, and actually, unfortunately, there's I guess one benefit. To the coronavirus is that we've been able to keep people out of the facility to rehab it. Even though it's a very, very small benefit, but that facility is going to be amazing and be able to have room for 4 basketball courts, multiple volleyball courts, tennis courts. So really in the area, kind of no one can match those facilities. And I think once parents and players are able, student athletes are able to get in and see these facilities, they're really going to, really have a, you're going to be blown away by it when they kind of see more and more in the process. Again, there's a lot of multi-sport athletes. We've kind of talked about that with myself in the process of putting in all turf baseball fields and the outdoor for baseball and softball. So I think the facilities will be a huge portion. And then lastly, I think we talked about the competitiveness, and I'm not going there to not be successful. I would never, get involved in something, especially in my backyard, that I didn't think would be great. And I think that we're going to be able to do some great things. And, and it's just like anything else. You have to sell yourself. And I think I've grown up in this community. I know a lot of the parents. I know a lot of the players. And I think if they come on board, I think we're going to do great things. So that's, kind of those 3 things are huge. And if you hear a lot of background noise, we have a drive-through graduation. They have a virtual graduation. I live right across the street from the junior high, so there's a lot of honking and going by with their graduation. So that might be a little background noise.
Okay, hey, don't worry about it, man. My son is in the other room doing his thing with Mickey Mouse, so don't worry about it. But so what I heard you say though, in terms of for the residents, within Evergreen Park to understand that, one, they're gonna have state of the art facilities, literally college style. You go on some of these, college campuses, and you go to, some of these rec centers is on these campuses, and like, wow, so the great facilities, the great staff, staff as well as administration within the school to be able to offer, quality education, and if not just as good as they may get, with the institution that they may have to pay a little money for, or depending on if they are free, but if they have to pay a little money for, but it's still the education is going to develop them towards getting to college and being successful in college. So we have the great facilities, the great staff, and support. Great support from, as you said, the mentoring programs, the different clubs. So they're going to get everything in a public school that they would get at a private school. Not to mention the other great resources that come from the individuals within the school. And then finally, what you're bringing, kind of the cherry, on top of the sundae, is great basketball. So, understanding that, and I'm pretty sure, I again can go on a limb, but maybe on a Friday night, you may have individuals all from one community, which is the Evergreen Park community, but they're being split up because they have to go to different games depending on where their athlete is going, as opposed to having them at home or bringing them back home. Now, the great basketball that you plan on bringing can be that almost like in a small college town. how they revolve around athletics, because athletics brings the community together. Everybody is having ownership of not only the community, the school. So yeah, I mean that's amazing. And so, you know, why send your kid someplace else when now they have a program that's going to compete and is going to be, you know, worthy of getting that recognition statewide, you know, right in your backyard, you know. So yeah, I mean, it almost be a no-brainer to continue to send your kids someplace else, and you're already in the community, you know, less known, having them just come back home and leaving, you know, those communities. So you know, I think that's big, man, that you have come back home, but you have a plan. And I think that a lot of people may get jobs, you know, same way like athletes may get playing time, but oftentimes when we get that in which we want, we don't really have a plan. And
Yeah,
so,
no.
you know, I think that the reason that you will be successful there is because you already have a plan, and the plan is bigger than basketball. You know, you have a plan for the community, and you're just wrapping basketball around. You know, so I, you know, think that that's amazing. Is it any advice? You know, we talked about the recruiting in college, the recruiting on a high school level, you know, for parents of seniors, even parents of juniors, and you know, you've had both of those on all of your teams. Like, what's some of the advice, the college advice, recruiting advice that you give to your athletes and or your parents during that particular time, junior year, senior year? Like, what's some advice that you can leave with the people tonight?
You know, I would say the biggest thing is, and you said juniors or seniors, I'm going to even take it a step back,
Yeah.
is freshman or sophomore, don't, underestimate how important it is to get off to a good start academically when you get into high school. Now, I totally understand because I've been there and I've coached a lot of players that have been there. When you make that leap, like we talked about, the leap from 8th grade to varsity basketball, or the leap from varsity basketball to college level basketball, is making that move from 8th grade to freshman year of high school, is being able to get off to a good start academically. So you're not chasing those numbers. If you get off to a bad start academically and you have aspirations of playing in college and you don't have those grades, sometimes it's hard to catch up and make up for a bad freshman or sophomore year. So being off to a good start academically and build those habits to not have a situation where you're chasing grades your senior year to be able to qualify to academically play in college. And I think the other thing is being, as you do get closer, you, like you said, junior or senior year, is be realistic. And that doesn't mean not having dreams or not having, aspirations to be a Division I athlete in whatever sport you're playing. But I think to be realistic enough to have an open mind, to listen to your coaches, to listen to evaluators that, guys like you who would be able to, that are willing and unbiased to help parents and players get to the next level, but maybe not at the same level they want to be. But at the same point, they're going to go to college and they'll get, whether it be everything paid for or part of it paid for, to make that basketball, an ends to a mean, as opposed to letting the basketball control them and, not being able to use a good 4-year career in basketball at the high school level to get to a college, whether it be career or just, an opportunity to go to college and, like I said, save some money and move on in life and their careers after that.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. Just being able to understand that, you can't start off slow, because as you said, and you spoke it eloquently, like now you're always chasing that number, now you're playing from behind and it's catch up, but build good habits, because the habits kind of create, you starting off slow or you starting off and, hitting the ground running. What type of study habits, what type of time balance habits, that you have, competitive habits, accountability habits. but also, and I've never heard it put that way, have dreams, but be realistic, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with a lot of athletes nowadays because I see Duke, but I'm really UIC. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's nothing wrong with that. Again, now you just have to be realistic because do you wait and wait and wait, and now a UIC snatches the offer off the table because they feel as though that now you're settling for them, and I tell parents all the time, you don't want for coaches, even on a high school level or on a college level, you don't want for coaches to feel like that they're getting an athlete that's just settling on them, because now we'd rather not have you. We have to twist your arm to come here. What's the best fit? So I think that's another big nugget tonight. Have dreams, but be realistic about that. It's like, okay, open your eyes so that you can see where we are and make, the best, choice, the best decision from that. Is it anything that you would like to say to the Evergreen Park community, right now that will be listening or may see this, later on, if you shared or, on any of the platforms that I may share it on. But is there anything that you want for the high school basketball community in Evergreen Park to kind of know and hear from you before everything really, really gets started?
Yeah, I think, we've obviously talked for a good chunk of time tonight. So we've talked about a lot. But kind of a, closing statement would be, when I look at that, one of the things I've always prided myself on as an assistant, coach at the high school level, as a program director at the youth level, is my relationship with players, parents. I think anyone that's worked with me knows that I have their family and their, most importantly, their children and my, my best expectation for them. And I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to help them. I guess it's easy, kind of cliche to say that I have their back, but I always do. And that really is at the core of what I do. Like you'd mentioned before, I'm not a teacher. I don't need the money. This is kind of a secondary career for me. It's a situation where I'm always looking out for families the best that I possibly can, to be able to help their kids develop as most to their potential as possible. The ideal situation is for them to play at the next level. Yes, winning games at the high school level is great. Like I said, when you tie it into a public school situation in Evergreen Park, I think we can have a lot of fun with it and really build a community around having, a successful sports team, whether it be basketball or anything else. But at the end, I think those relationships with the players and their parents and their family is the most important thing. And, I think if you talk to most people that I've worked with, that's really, like I said, to the core of what I try to do. The coaches I have on my staff do, and we'll continue to do that at Evergreen Park. So, like I said, I look forward to, building up even more of a community atmosphere in Evergreen Park, with basketball being a small portion of that. And I just hope, like I said, I think we've figured out more and more every day goes by in this pandemic we're in that, basketball is a small portion of it.
Absolutely.
Important family, or faith are more important than basketball. But we also realize how much we miss basketball and sports when we're locked down and there's situations going on like this. So, I just hope to, once we kind of break out of this, and things get somewhat back to normal, that we can, make the community proud and make the school proud. And, at the same point, win a lot of games and get a lot of players to play at the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's big, man. And, I just wanted you to be able to have the opportunity to be able to, speak to maybe just that crowd, so that they can understand again what the plan is, what you're looking to do, looking to, bring in. And, again, I just love it. And before we go, one, I appreciate you taking the time out away from the family, to be able to get on here with us and, to be able to educate, share your knowledge, as well as your story, so the people can kind of understand a little bit more about why you do what you do and why you do them the way that you have done them. You are person that smiles a lot, and you are very close to those that you're close with. But I think in knowing you for a couple decades, you are one that's pretty private. In terms of, you're not going out here looking to get in the spotlight, get in front of cameras. You're gonna do what Jim Sexton does, and once that relationship is built, you definitely show your gratitude and your appreciation by doing things like coming on and speaking with us tonight, or just letting people know a little bit more about what it is that you have to offer. So I definitely appreciate you taking that time with us, for that. And before we go, I definitely want to again talk about understanding life through the game of basketball. And that's what we talked about tonight, that competitiveness, that accountability, that trust, just all of those things that go hand in hand with just being a better individual, being a better person, understanding coaches better, understanding players better, understanding just leaders better. Why, it means more to certain people. Well, once you understand that basketball is bigger than basketball, now you have a different passion for it, because you see the possibilities that it can not only provide for you, but for everybody that we particularly touch using this basketball. As Coach Sexton said, want to bring a community together and just be able to use basketball to do it. And so, that's what this book talks about, just different basketball concepts that will help us in our everyday lives. So this is the first book, and I dropped the link to where you can actually get your book bundle. So this is the first one. The second one is here, Creating a Perfect Storm. And this one is, as all athletes, if Coach Sexton is on the mound pitching, or if he's on the wing spotting up for a three, and everything is falling, every pitch is a strike, well, at some point he's been able to turn something on and manufacture in his mind, and even as he was saying, with the style of play that he's been used to coaching and teaching as well as playing, it goes back to conditioning as well as the mentality. Well, this is what this book is. It helps athletes put themselves in the right mentality, no matter if they're in the classroom, if they're on the court, if they're on the field, but by taking their experience, taking their development, as well as taking their performance, and being able to bridge all those three into what I call the perfect storm. Now, when Coach Sexton gets on the wing and gets that pass, and it's in the gym is packed and loud and crowded. Well, he's already been in that situation mentally before, because he knows how to put himself in a certain frame of mind. And so those are the individuals that always come out on top, because as Coach Sexton said, even with the UIC days or the Evergreen Park days, it was about competitiveness and believing in you and knowing that, okay, I can not only get this done, but I can kind of go into a different realm mentally to where I'm totally locked in, regardless of what's happening around me, based on my performance, my development, and my past experience. And so that's what this book is. So you get this book in the bundle with this one, as well as the first 2 seasons of this show, which is what we call the hottest professional and personal development show that's out here, and it just so happens to use basketball. So it's not just talking about plays or what type of systems, but how this game can help us become better leaders. So, I dropped the link to where you can get the book bundle, as well as, the 2 seasons of the show. The first 2 seasons of the show, we're on season 4 now. So you can go pick that up, as well as starting June 1st, we have a everything is virtual now, but we're, taking our Game Changer Academy that was in the gym, and now I'm bringing that online. And what we do at this point, Jimmy, is like everything that we teach is more so developing the athlete mentally, from again the neck up, to be able to understand that if I'm understanding the game better, I may not have to be a 5-star athlete that's just playing on my athletic ability, because I understand where those spots at. I understand how to set good screens, and that good screen is going to get me open. So now what we do is help teach the players how to use basketball at an unfair advantage, because you just understand more than the average athlete. And so now that puts you in a much better situation. And so we bring in our Game Changers, back June the 1st. And so I dropped the link, to that as well. It'll be a 6-week program, very, very, affordable, but something that, especially during this time, while everybody is doing drills, the drills are nice, but do you understand why you should be doing them? As you said, the Coach Richardson taught you, just having that full mentality of the game to be able to now use it to your advantage. So I dropped both of those links to where you can get the book bundle as well as register for Game Changer Academy. Before I go and we get out of here, though, Coach, I want to put you in the hot seat for a minute. And I asked one question about Brother Rice. I think that kind of stumbled you for a minute. I'm like, I should have saved that one for the hot seat. But if just starting out, let me ask you, who is the toughest player that you've had to face as a player in the Catholic League?
In the Catholic League.
Who's the best player that you had to face?
Antoine Walker.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that.
Just because we were head to head, we were the same age. We battled sophomore through senior year. Had some great games where they came out a little bit on top. Sometimes we came out on top. But just having to guard him at that size and that skill level was always tough. Like I said, he's probably 6'8", I'm 6'4", and I ended up guarding him quite a bit. So I think, as far as from a guard standpoint, having to guard a guy in the Catholic League, he was tough. I didn't get an opportunity to play against Kleinschmidt when he was a senior, when I was a freshman. He was really good. There were so many good players. But as far as probably the toughest player I played against in the Catholic League would be Antoine Walker.
Okay, and
so he went on to a pretty good career.
Yeah, definitely, and that was Mount Carmel, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he was at Mount Carmel, okay.
Yeah, he was on a team with Donovan McNabb. Had another guy, Willie Jones, that played at Loyola Marymount. Jay Driscoll was their point guard. He was a real good player that played at Quincy. So they had some talent. We ended up beating them in the sectional championship there in '94 at Eisenhower.
Really? Okay.
We beat him in the regular season, but he was tough.
And it's funny that you say, like, listening to you, like, I had to stick him, but again, you're 6'4" in high school, play some in the post. Antoine Walker maybe 6'5", 6'7" during that time. So
right.
Who's gonna guard him? Jim's gonna guard him. Okay. Best basketball moment as a player or as a coach?
Oh man. I would say best basketball moment was winning our first regional at St. Lawrence. We beat Hyde Park in the regionals at Mount Carmel, because it not only gave us our 20th win. I think it was the first time St. Lawrence had 20 wins in 15 or so years. And it was the first regional in 15 or so years. So,
wow.
That was, again, my first team as a head coach, and to go 20 wins and to win the regional against Hyde Park. It was out at Mount Carmel. So a lot of good players and a lot of great moments as a player in high school and college. But that would probably be my best best basketball moment.
Okay. Explain to us the feeling of hearing your team name called, because as you say, you were you were on that team the first UIC postseason. So explain the feeling of being in those chairs, watching Channel 2, hearing the team name called, but then to go a step further to be in the tournament that Thursday or that Friday afternoon with so much going on. Like walk us through that.
Yeah,
Because everybody doesn't get a chance to experience that.
Yeah, you're right, and it's a phenomenal moment. I mean, and I think as you remember, the fact that we were an at-large bid, we didn't have, usually at a mid-major, you're a conference tournament champion, and you're going to be in somewhere. But the fact that we were actually an at-large bid, and we're as highly seated as we were, I thought was really cool, and just being involved in the 64 show or whatever they call it now on that Sunday afternoon, and having the team together at Moretti's, and like I said, having the news coverage there, before big time internet and Twitter and different. Just having to wait to see it on the big screen there at the restaurant was awesome. And then going to Hartford, Connecticut, and unfortunately losing in the first round, but battling and having an opportunity to just to be involved in a tournament was an incredible experience.
Yeah, totally mind blowing, man. And I mean, as you said, they went a couple times after that, but just being that team that and on the previous year losing to Butler by 1, and before Butler was Butler, but missing that automatic bid, but to be able to get that that at-large bid just spoke to just the hard work and dedication that was put in that year by that particular UIC team. Last thing, Jimmy, again, man, I appreciate you, spending the time. I've called you Jimmy, I've called you Coach Sexton. It just depending on where the questions go, but I think that you are the same person, coach as well as person, every day, all day, and I think that that's one of the things that I, admire about you. You definitely show your face, as I said, but you kind of focused on family and career and being able to help other people, and so that's why I wanted to have you on the show, be able to get other people to understand, experience a little bit more about you, as well as the good things that you're gonna bring to Evergreen Park High School. I'm gonna definitely get out sometime this year, and hopefully if whatever the new normal is, but when basketball is back, to definitely be able to come check you guys out. If you need me to come talk to the team or anything, just hit me up and give me a call. But in closing us out, man, how can we make basketball better?
I think we got to keep doing what we're doing. I don't know if it's a situation where I think basketball's in a pretty good spot. There's always talk about, the game of baseball and kind of how long it's been around, and maybe it's too boring for the newer generation. I think basketball is a game that continues to develop. And I'm not saying it's just because of guys like us, but it's guys that are, way ahead of us as far as their career arcs. The guys that are behind us, the players that are coming up. And I think it's an ever evolving game. And I think that's the thing that makes it so great. It continues to kind of move with the times and be exciting. I think it's something, you look at the Bulls, Last Dance, how, interesting, and how many people are able to go back in time or learn about it. So I think it's a situation where you go back 20 years, it was a great game, and now you move forward to the game where it's at. So I think the only thing we can continue to do is just do things like you're doing, man. Your platform is awesome. I think the way you're working with coaches, you're working with players, even in tough times, working with parents to help players get opportunities to to do the great things they need to do at the high school level. And then, like I said, ideally move to the college level and on to life after that. So I think as long as we keep doing that, man, and keep spreading the good word, I think we're doing the best we possibly can. And I know there's thousands of other guys out there doing the same stuff that I really respect, and I know are doing great things at whatever level they're coaching or they're playing at to keep the game that we love, keep prospering.
Absolutely, absolutely, and keep it relevant, prospering, and just doing it the right way, and I think that and again, with this show, what our mission is just to highlight the people that's doing it the right way, so that more people can do it the right way. Because ultimately, we want to be able to help athletes, as well as make it enjoyable for those individuals that are watching. So again, you all get out and go check out, Coach Jim Sexton at Evergreen Park has done, some tremendous things already on a high school level. Watch him, not only getting the opportunity to coach his son, but getting the opportunity to coach in an environment where he came up. So, I think this go round, it'll be much more personal. I think it'll be much more, accountability also, but I definitely think that they couldn't have picked a better person at a better time. Man, I'm, looking forward to checking, you out. I hope that, you keep plugging, into the show, getting whatever value that, we can offer you, and, share it around, however it may be. If you need me, again, reach out to me. I appreciate everybody for watching again tonight. And as I always say in closing, keep striving for the top, because it is crowded as hell at the bottom. So until next time, my man,
buddy.
Coach Jim Sexton, keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep doing a great job. I appreciate you checking in with us. And until next time, people, I thank you for watching, and we'll see you on another show.
Thanks, buddy. Stay blessed.
Peace. All right, Jim. Yes, sir.
Peace.
You and the family too. All right. Peace.
Thank you too.
Yes, sir.